Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hmm.
Today we're venturing into a world that might be completely new terrain for some of you,
Hmm.
especially if you're joining us from places where snow sports aren't a common sight. Maybe thinking of our listeners in India, for example.
Right.
We're taking a really close look at ski resorts.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's all about unpacking these winter destinations.
Hmm.
We'll explore what, defines a ski resort, trace its evolution,
Yeah.
understand the mechanics of how these businesses operate, and importantly, get a handle on the costs involved if you're planning a ski trip.
And we'll even compare Australian resorts to some of the big international players.
We will. We'll size them up against international destinations too.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We're drawing on insights from a guide to ski resorts, what newcomers need to know, and also the information on Wikipedia.
Yeah, plenty of detail there.
Our goal is really to equip you with a solid understanding of ski resorts, whether you're just curious or maybe even thinking about your first time on the slopes.
Mm-hmm.
So, to start us off, what exactly is a ski resort?
Okay, well, at its core, a ski resort is basically a mountain destination. It's specifically developed for skiing, snowboarding, and other winter sports.
Right.
Think of it like a concentrated hub, all designed around snow-based activities.
So it's more than just like a mountain that happens to get snow.
Yeah,
What are the essential bits that make it a resort?
precisely. Yeah, several key components really come together. First, you obviously have the ski area itself. The snow-covered slopes, they call them pistes.
Beasts, okay.
These are carefully managed trails, and they have varying difficulty levels, usually marked with colors green for beginners,
Uh-huh.
blue for intermediate, and black for the advanced skiers.
Right, and getting up the mountain.
Yes, crucial. You need a network of ski lifts. These can range from, chair lifts and gondolas, which are quite common,
Yeah,
to simpler things like rope tows, especially in beginner areas.
right. You definitely need a way back up after skiing down.
Yeah.
What about the snow itself? Is it always natural?
Snow is, well, it's fundamental, isn't it? Resorts are usually in alpine regions that get natural snowfall.
Mm-hmm.
But to guarantee consistent snow cover all season, many resorts also use artificial snowmaking. They have these snow guns or cannons.
Oh, okay. Snowmaking.
Yeah, and the amount of skiable terrain can vary massively. You get small local hills, and then you get these huge interconnected networks covering thousands of hectares.
Wow. Okay, so we've got slopes, lifts, snow natural or man-made. What else defines the resort part?
That's where the lodging and all the supporting facilities come in. You'll usually find hotels, maybe chalets or lodges right at the base of the slopes or very close by.
For people staying overnight or longer?
Exactly. For visitors staying more than just a day, then there's a whole range of essential amenities, restaurants, cafes, and those crucial après-ski bars.
Après-ski sounds important.
Oh, it is, for socializing after a day out there. You'll also find rental shops for skis, boards, boots, and ski schools offering lessons for everyone, from absolute beginners to experts.
Seems like a whole ecosystem. What about the stuff happening behind the scenes?
Absolutely vital, yeah. Resorts have support services like the ski patrol. They're there for safety and first aid on the slopes.
Right.
Then you have trail grooming machines, these big vehicles that work overnight smoothing out the pistes.
Ah, the corduroy snow you hear about.
That's it. And teams operating the lifts, of course. Plus, many resorts offer non-skiing things too, like sledding, tubing, maybe even spas for relaxation.
So it really is a kind of one-stop shop for enjoying the snow. Slopes, food, relaxation, everything.
Yeah.
And they're found pretty much everywhere except Antarctica.
That's right, on all continents.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is how they've developed differently. In Europe, for instance, many resorts grew sort of organically from existing mountain towns or villages.
Places that were already there.
Yeah, places that maybe had summer tourism already, and then they adapted for winter activities as skiing became popular.
Like those classic alpine villages you imagine.
Exactly like those. Now, contrast that with North America. There, you often find purpose-built villages.
Built just for skiing.
Pretty much. Designed from the ground up specifically around the ski area. It creates a more self-contained, resort-focused environment.
That's a really interesting distinction in how they started. Okay, so that gives us a good picture of a modern ski resort. How did we get here? How did this idea of a ski holiday start?
Well, skiing itself as a way to travel in snow is ancient, but ski resorts as holiday destinations, that really started gaining traction around the mid-19th century.
Okay.
And the story of St. Moritz in Switzerland is often pointed to as like the birthplace of winter tourism for fun.
Ah, St. Moritz. Yes, heard of it. What happened there? What was the turning point?
Right. So back in 1864, there was this hotel owner, Johannes Bedroot. He made a pretty bold bet with his English summer guests.
Oh, yeah.
He basically invited them back for the winter, and he promised them if they didn't enjoy it, he'd pay for all their travel costs.
Wow, that's quite the guarantee.
Oh,
Did it
God.
pay off?
It really did.
Right.
Apparently, the guests came, they absolutely loved the sunny winter experience, and ended up staying the whole season.
Amazing.
And that event is widely seen as the start of alpine winter holidays, purely for pleasure. St. Moritz kind of set the example.
So other places started thinking, hey, we could do this too.
Exactly. Inspired other mountain communities to start catering to skiers and winter tourists.
So skiing went from being just practical transport to recreation. When did that shift really pick up speed?
Throughout the late 1800s, early 1900s, it really gained momentum. You started seeing the first ski clubs forming, competitive races. Mountain hotels began staying open all winter. But a huge catalyst was technology, specifically ski lifts.
Ah, yes. Because hiking up the mountain after every run sounds exhausting.
Totally. Imagine doing that all day. The first overhead cable ski lift appeared in the early 1900s, about 1908 in Austria, I think.
Okay.
And then that idea spread, reached the U.S. in the 1930s. Lifts made getting up the slopes so much easier, which made resorts way more attractive to more people.
Right. Opened it up. Now, the guide mentioned something interesting. Generations of ski resort development. What's that about?
Yeah, it's a useful way to think about how different resorts came about. First-generation resorts, those were established mountain towns.
Like St. Moritz.
Exactly. St. Moritz, Chamonix in France, places that already had summer tourism and just added winter sports. They already had hotels, infrastructure.
So they adapted what they had. Makes sense. What's second generation?
Second-generation resorts, they tended to grow around smaller villages or maybe even just pasture land, places that didn't really have much tourism before skiing arrived.
Okay.
Think of places like Aspen in the U.S. or St. Anton in Austria. They kind of grew from small beginnings once someone put in some lifts.
So the skiing came first, and the resort town grew around it, more or less.
Pretty much. Then you get the third generation. These are quite different because they were purpose-built, totally from scratch, mainly in the 60s and 70s.
Built specifically as ski resorts.
Exactly. Planned communities, places like La Plaine or Flaine in France are classic examples. Master planned with accommodation right by the slopes, creating these self-contained ski villages on undeveloped land.
That's a totally different philosophy, designing the whole thing around skiing from day one.
It is. And finally, you have what they call fourth-generation resorts. These are more modern. They try to blend great skiing with year-round appeal.
Ah, okay.
And often they try to build in a kind of traditional village feel, even if they're new. Or they might be older resorts that have been updated to attract visitors in summer, too, focusing more on sustainability, perhaps.
That makes a lot of sense, especially since the ski season can be quite short in some places.
Yeah.
How else have resorts kept changing?
Oh, constantly evolving. Lift technology is maybe the most obvious, from simple rope tows to these super high-speed gondolas and chairlifts that move thousands of people an hour.
Yeah, the difference is huge.
And snowmaking. That became widespread from the 70s onwards. That's been a game changer for reliability and extending the season.
Right, less dependence on just natural snow.
Definitely. And the off-slope stuff has exploded, too.
Yeah.
Basic lodges have become full-service resorts with shops, nightlife, spas, wellness centers.
Yeah. And this idea of operating all year round is becoming more standard, isn't it?
Absolutely. Many resorts are really pushing summer activities now. The same mountains offer hiking, lift-accessed mountain biking.
Mountain biking seems huge now.
It is. Plus alpine slides, scenic lift rides in summer. Threadbow in Australia is a good example. They get tons of visitors in winter for snow, but also a lot in summer for biking and hiking. It helps the business make sense year-round.
Maximizing the mountain, basically. You mentioned ski culture evolving, too.
Yeah, things like après-ski, that social scene after skiing, drinks, music, sometimes dancing. That's become a real tradition, especially in Europe, but it's spread.
Mm-hmm.
And even ski fashion has changed dramatically, from heavy wool sweaters to the high-tech, waterproof, breathable gear you see today.
It's quite a transformation, isn't it? From just a way to get around in snow to this massive global leisure industry.
It really is. Driven by pioneers, by technology, and by this evolving culture around skiing and snowboarding. But, at the heart of it, it's still about that feeling of gliding down a snowy slope.
Okay, so we get what a resort is, how it evolved. Let's talk about who actually owns and runs these places. Is it mostly big companies?
The ownership models do vary, but yeah, often it is a single company operating the core stuff, especially the lifts and the trails. What's interesting is that many resorts are actually on public land.
Public land, like national parks.
Exactly. National parks, national forests, that's quite common. The government grants a long-term lease or a concession to a private company,
Okay.
and that company then invests in building and running the resort lifts, snowmaking, daily operations, but they have to follow environmental rules and land use agreements.
Right.
The Aussie resorts like Thredbo and Perisher and Kosciuszko National Park work like that. They operate under long leases from the government. Thredbo's lease goes way back to 1957, I think.
So the company is like a long-term tenant managing the mountain. What about resorts on private land? Does that happen too?
It does, yeah. In some areas, maybe more in parts of Europe and North America, resorts might be on privately owned land. Then the company has more direct ownership.
Okay.
But either way, land ownership aside, it's usually one main company managing the ski lifts and the mountain facilities. Central management is really key for safety and efficiency.
Makes sense. You need coordination for grooming, safety patrols, all that. What about the other businesses? The hotels, shops, restaurants? Same owner.
Often it's a mix. The main company running the lifts might own some hotels or restaurants,
Right.
but you'll also find independent hotels, rental shops, cafes operating within the resort. They might lease space or operate under the resort's kind of overall umbrella.
Like Thredbo, you mentioned.
Thredbo is a good example, yeah. The main operator handles the mountain, but lots of private businesses provide other services. North America, sometimes you see more vertical integration, where the main company owns more of the village amenities.
And we are seeing more big corporate groups buying up resorts, aren't we?
Definitely. That's been a huge trend in recent decades. Consolidation. Big companies acquiring multiple resorts, sometimes across different countries or even continents.
Like Vail Resorts.
Vail is the prime example. They own a ton of resorts globally, including Perisher in Australia, bought them in 2015.
Right.
Then you've got Alterra Mountain Company, big in North America, Compagnie des Alpes in Europe. These groups offer those multi-resort season passes, like the Epic Pass from Vail or the Icon Pass.
What are the pros and cons of that from a visitor's perspective?
Well, the potential upside is often more financial stability, maybe more standardized services, potentially bigger investments in infrastructure.
Okay.
The downside some people worry about is maybe a loss of local character, a more kind of corporate feel, maybe less unique identity for each resort.
Are there any other main ways resorts are owned?
Yeah, though they're less common. Some resorts might be owned by the local town or city council. Winter Park in Colorado, for instance, is owned by the city of Denver, but operated by another company.
Interesting.
And you might find some smaller European resorts owned by local cooperatives, maybe families or the town itself. But running a ski resort is super capital intensive, you know?
Yeah.
Lifts, snowmaking, insurance. It takes a lot of money and expertise.
So it usually needs a dedicated company behind it?
Usually, yeah. That's why the corporate model is dominant. The main operator is like the landlord of the mountain, partnering with others for the full experience.
Okay.
And for you, planning a trip, knowing the resort brands, Vail, Icon, etc., can be useful because it reflects these ownership groups and often affects past options and the overall vibe. But ultimately, you just want it all to run smoothly.
Right. You want a seamless experience.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears to the money side. How do ski resorts actually work as businesses? Must be tough with the seasonality and weather dependence.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a huge challenge. They basically have to make most of their money in a pretty short winter season, maybe 3-4 months, to cover costs that run all year round. So let's look at where the money comes from. Lift pass sales, that's usually the biggest slice of the pie.
Makes sense. Everyone needs one.
Everyone needs a ticket to ride the lifts. And single-day passes can be pricey, especially at top resorts. Think over 150 US, maybe close to 200 Australian dollars in peak season.
Wow.
They also sell multi-day passes, season passes. Those bring in cash upfront and lock in repeat visitors. And those multi-resort passes, Epic and Icon, are massive now. Big revenue drivers.
So getting people on lists is job number one for revenue. What else brings in significant money?
Equipment rentals and ski school are big ones too. Lots of people, especially beginners or tourists, need to rent skis, boards, boots, helmets. That adds up.
Yeah, rental queues can be long.
They can. And lessons, group lessons, private lessons, they're another key income stream, especially those beginner packages. Lesson rentals, maybe a restricted lift pass. It's convenient. People pay a premium for that expertise on site.
Okay. And where people stay, that must be big too.
Accommodation and real estate, absolutely. If the resort operator owns hotels or condos, booking revenue, especially in peak season, is huge.
Right.
Some resorts even develop and sell vacation homes near the slopes. Or they might get fees or lease payments from third-party hotels operating within the resort.
And I bet food and drink on the mountain isn't cheap.
Definitely not. Food and beverage is a major revenue source. On mountain restaurants, cafes, bars, they can charge high prices because, well, where else are you going to eat?
Captive audience.
Pretty much. It's often compared to airport pricing, especially here in Australia sometimes. Après-ski drinks, snacks, and it all adds up for them. Then there's retail too, selling gear, clothing, souvenirs. They might run the shops or get rent or a cut from independent retailers.
Sounds like they try to capture spending at every turn.
They do. And increasingly, summer activities are becoming important revenue generators. Scenic lift rides, mountain biking parks, hiking tours, hosting events like concerts or festivals.
Right, diversifying beyond winter.
Exactly. It helps offset those year-round costs, even if summer doesn't usually bring in as much as winter. Other bits might include parking fees, maybe equipment storage lockers, advertising.
So lots of ways money comes in. But running these places must cost a fortune too. What are the big expenses?
Oh, the costs are substantial. Lift infrastructure, just installing a new high-speed lift, can be millions. And then the daily checks, annual maintenance, upgrades, it's constant and expensive.
I can imagine.
Snowmaking and grooming are huge costs, too. Those grooming machines, the piston bullies, they're expensive machines and they burn a lot of fuel. Snowmaking uses masses of electricity and water. Perisher system in Australia is enormous.
Yeah, the energy bill must be eye-watering. What about staff?
Staffing is another massive cost. You need lift operators, instructors, ski patrol, mechanics, snowmakers, hospitality staff, retail. Loads of people, especially seasonally.
Right.
Recruiting them, training them, often housing them, paying wages. It's a major operational expense. Then there's insurance and safety. Skiing has risks.
Definitely.
So resorts need hefty liability insurance. They fund the ski patrol, manage avalanche control where needed, which can involve explosives or even helicopters.
Safety doesn't come cheap. What else adds up?
Marketing and sales, obviously. Gotta attract visitors. If they're on public land, there are lease fees, taxes, utilities power, water pumping for snowmaking, communications, road maintenance, and just general off-season upkeep of everything.
It sounds like a really tricky business model.
Mm-hmm.
High cost, short earning season.
It is very concentrated earning window in winter, makes them vulnerable to bad snow years or, unforeseen closures.
Well, how do they manage that risk?
They try to mitigate it, diversify with summer activities, as we said, attract off-peak visitors. Those multi-resort passes help guarantee some visitor numbers. Investing heavily in snowmaking reduces weather dependence. And just, careful financial planning, having reserves.
So when we look at that lift ticket price, it's funding a lot more than just the ride up the hill.
Absolutely. It's funding the safety, the grooming, the snowmaking, the staff, everything behind the scenes that makes the experience possible and hopefully enjoyable.
Okay, understood. So the resorts have huge costs. What about us, the visitors? A ski trip definitely feels like a big expense. Let's break down where the money goes for someone planning a trip.
Yeah, it's often seen as a pricey, even a luxury holiday. And the costs start before you even get there. Travel to the resort. That varies massively, obviously.
Okay.
If you're coming from India to, say, Europe or Japan, you've got international flights.
Yeah.
Then trains, buses, maybe a rental car to get up into the mountains. Even domestically, like Sydney to Perisher, it's a 5-6 hour drive or flight plus bus.
And mountain driving can be tricky in winter.
It can. You might need snow chains, especially in places like the snowy mountains here or Colorado. Plus parking fees at the resort, maybe road tolls. It all adds up.
Okay, so travel is number one, then accommodation.
Accommodation is usually the next big chunk. Staying right on the mountain, ski in, ski out. Super convenient, but usually the most expensive. Peak season prices for a basic lodge room in Thredbo or Perisher can easily be $250 a night or much more. Staying off mountain, like in Jindabyne for Perisher, is cheaper.
But then you have to travel to the slopes each day.
Exactly. Lose that convenience.
Right.
Renting an apartment or chalet as a group can sometimes work out more economical per person. But whatever you choose, booking early for peak times is critical.
Okay, and then the big one, lift passes.
Lift passes. Often the single biggest daily expense once you're there. Prices vary, but like we said, think potentially A175, $190 a day in Australia, peak season 2024. Europe, maybe 50 euros or 65. Top U.S. resorts over U.S. $150 isn't uncommon.
Wow.
Look for online discounts, advanced purchase deals, multi-day passes bring the daily rate down. Season passes make sense if you go a lot, and beginners might get cheaper passes just for the learner areas.
Planning ahead helps there. What about gear, skis, boots, all that?
Equipment rental is another significant cost, especially if you don't own anything. Skis or snowboard, boots, poles. Helmets are often extra, but really, really recommended.
Definitely.
Expect maybe US $30, $50 a day for basic adult gear, more for high-performance stuff or at fancy resorts. You might be able to rent clothing too, jackets, pants.
Is it cheaper to rent off-site?
Sometimes slightly cheaper renting in a town nearby, but the convenience of renting right at the resort base is often worth the extra cost for many people. Multi-day rentals usually get a discount.
And if you decide to buy your own stuff?
Buying is a big upfront investment. Good quality waterproof, insulated jacket and pants, warm gloves, goggles, thermal layers. It adds up fast, maybe thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But they can last years if you look after them. Yeah. Don't forget essentials like good ski socks, neck warmer, beanie, high SPF sunscreen.
Sounds like lessons are pretty essential for beginners too. Another cost.
Highly recommended, yes. And another budget item. Group lessons are more affordable, maybe US $40.90 for a half day. Private lessons, much more. Maybe $100 plus for just a couple of hours.
Look for those beginner packages. Lesson, rentals, beginner lift pass bundled together can be good value first time out. Even experienced skiers benefit from occasional lessons. Budget for at least one if you're starting.
Okay, got the big costs covered. What about just eating and drinking while you're there?
Food and drink. Yeah, expect it to be expensive at the resort itself, especially on mountain cafes and restaurants. Premium pricing is standard.
Right.
Lunch can cost double what you'd pay elsewhere, sometimes for pretty average food, especially in Ikawas or the U.S. maybe. Japan's often praised for better value and quality mountain food.
Interesting comparison.
Dinner in the resort villages varies. Self-catering helps save money if your place has a kitchen. Stocking up on groceries off-site is smart. Packing snacks for the slopes too. Drinks hot chocolate, coffee, beer, all adds up. Food costs over several days can be substantial.
Good tip about packing snacks. Any other costs to keep in mind? Miscellaneous things, yeah. Transport within the resort shuttle buses might be free, but taxis won't be. Parking fees can be hefty, especially in North America. Australia, you pay a national park entry fee per vehicle per day in winter, around $30.
Okay.
Childcare if you need it. Spa access might be extra. And crucially, travel insurance, absolutely essential to cover snow sports, including evacuation.
Right, don't skimp on insurance.
Definitely not. So yeah, adding it all up, say a 5-day ski trip from India to Australia, flights, transport, lodging, maybe a $750 plus for a 5-day lift pass, rentals, a lesson or two, food. You could easily be looking at over $2,000 per person, maybe much more. That's over a lakh rupees.
It's definitely an investment,
Yeah,
but hopefully memorable.
it is. And you can economize, go off-peak, choose smaller resorts, share lodging, cook your own food. But yeah, prepare for skiing to be an expensive hobby.
Okay, let's talk about the people at these resorts. Who typically visits, and how does it change between winter and summer?
Yeah, resorts attract a real mix, and it definitely shifts with the seasons. In winter, during the ski season, you get several main groups. Countertrippers. Often locals live relatively close, come just for the day, buy a day pass, maybe rent gear, grab lunch. Think Melbourne to Met-Buller or Geneva to Chamonix. Weekends are busiest for them.
Oh, you day trips.
Then you have your weekend warriors. Arrive Friday night, see Saturday, Sunday, head home Sunday evening, pay for 2 nights lodging, 2-day pass, rentals, meals out. Common pattern from cities like Sydney or Paris to nearby resorts.
Got it. And longer stays.
Holiday tourists, these are people traveling further. Maybe it's their main winter vacation. Could be families doing a full week, international visitors.
Like someone from India going to Europe or Japan.
Exactly. Or Australians doing a solid week in Perisher. Week-long packages, Saturday to Saturday, are really common in Europe. These folks spend more overall week of lodging, longer lift pass, maybe lessons, daily meals, entertainment. They fill the midweek beds.
Makes sense. Who else?
Season pass holders and locals. They visit frequently, maybe just for a few hours or a day at a time. Big initial outlay on the pass, then lower cost per visit. Might own property nearby or just drive up often. Less spending per day on the mountain, maybe.
Right, they contribute to the regular buzz.
Yeah, and you get niche groups, too. College ski trips, big groups, budget lodging, corporate trips, mix of meetings and skiing, and the real hardcore skiers, chasing the best snow, maybe doing off-piste or heli skiing.
And how long do people typically stay in winter?
Varies a lot.
Yeah.
Hours for a day tripper, up to weeks for some Europeans. In Australian NZ, it's rare for people to stay much over a week, partly cost, partly the shorter season. Average is probably 3-7 days for a destination visitor.
Okay. What about when the snow melts? Who comes then?
The off-season brings a totally different crowd. Summer visitors are often sightseers and hikers, enjoying the mountain views, the trails, the cooler air.
Right, using the lifts for scenery.
Exactly. Lifts often run for hikers or scenic rides. Think Threadbow, hiking up towards Mount Kosciuszko. Cable cars in the Alps are popular in summer. Often day trippers or people on road trips, they buy a lift ticket, maybe lunch.
And mountain bikers. That seems huge now.
Mountain bikers are a major summer group now. Resorts have built dedicated bike parks with lift access. Whistler, Queenstown, Morzine in France. Big mountain biking hubs. There are often weekend visitors or locals. Spending is similar to skiers, lift passes, rentals, lodging, food, but summer rates are often lower.
What else brings people in summer?
Adventure sports, zip lining, paragliding, climbing, horse riding, golf, alpine slides. Lots of resorts offer these. Events and festivals are big too. Music, food, beer festivals, biking competitions, trail running races. Threadbow has a blues festival, for example.
So summer can be quite busy too.
It can be, yeah. And some people just come for long-term relaxation, escaping city heat. Places like Gulmarg in India or Zermatt, St. Moritz in Europe have a history as summer destinations too, even before skiing.
How long do summer visitors usually stay?
Generally shorter stays than winter skiers. A weekend, maybe a few nights, unless they're there for a specific event or a longer relaxation trip. Daily spending per person is usually lower, cheaper lift tickets, no expensive gear rentals or lessons. But you might get more total visitors in summer because the appeal is broader than just skiing.
Right. What about the shoulder seasons, like autumn and spring?
Usually the quietest times. Autumn might get some hikers for the foliage colors. Spring sees some late-season skiing, often with discounts spring skiing. But many facilities might close down for maintenance or a break.
It really shows how different users have different priorities.
Totally. The hardcore skier wants first tracks on a powder day and cares less about fancy restaurants. The casual vacationer might ski a few hours, then enjoy the spa or shopping. Families need kid-friendly stuff. Summer hikers might be on a tight budget. Event attendees use specific facilities.
Understanding that helps you plan, right?
Mm.
Know when to go to avoid crowds or get deals.
Exactly. Peak times like New Year's or school holidays mean crowds, lift lines, higher prices. Off-peak is quieter, cheaper, but maybe not everything is open. Each season offers a really different vibe.
That's a perfect segue into planning a trip.
Mm.
For a newcomer, especially from somewhere like India, without that ski culture, it feels daunting. Where do you even start?
It can seem overwhelming, yeah. But just break it down. Step 1, choose your destination and when you want to go.
Okay.
Think about snow. Research the typical season, the best months. January, February is often peak snow in Europe, North America, maybe January in Japan, July, August down here in Australia and Z.
Right. Snow reliability.
Yeah. Also consider crowds and costs. Peak holidays are expensive and busy. Off-peak, like mid-January or early September in Abyss, is cheaper, quieter, but check what's actually open.
And the resort itself.
Think about the resort's character. Beginner-friendly. Good ski school. Also, language might matter. Ayers, US, Canada are easier for English speakers from India, obviously. And travel distance, be realistic. Europe or Japan from India is a long haul plus mountain travel. Closer options exist like Gulmarg in India or maybe Almaty in Kazakhstan, but they're often less developed.
Good points. Okay. Chosen a place and time. What's next?
Book accommodation early, especially for peak season. Decide what type suits you: hotel, apartment, chalet, maybe a club lodge if you're in Australia.
On-mountain convenience versus off-mountain cost.
That's the trade-off. Staying right on the slopes is amazing but pricey. Staying in a nearby town like Jindabyne is cheaper but means daily travel to the lifts. Look for package deals, lodging plus lift pass sometimes, and check cancellation policies carefully.
Okay. Accommodation booked. How do you get there?
Plan your transport. Step 3, flights get as close as you can, then transfers. Trains are great in Europe and Japan. Buses or shuttles often need pre-booking. Driving can be challenging in winter.
Snow driving experience needed.
Definitely helps. And check rules: tire chains, often mandatory in Australia on alpine roads for 2WD cars. Maybe consider a snow coach or the Perisher ski tube instead. In Europe, public transport is often so good you might want to avoid driving and parking hassles.
Right. Plan the whole journey. What about lift passes, lessons, rentals?
Budget and book extras in advance. That's step 4. Lift passes by online, often cheaper, might need date-specific booking now with dynamic pricing.
Oh.
Look for multi-day deals.
Lentils, too.
Reserve rentals online if you can. Saves time, ensures they have your size. You usually fill in your details online. Lessons definitely book ahead, especially for peak times or if you want a private instructor.
And insurance.
Crucial. Get travel insurance before you leave. Make sure it covers snow sports, including off-piste if you plan that, and emergency evacuation. Check the policy details.
What about gear? Buy before or at the resort?
If you need to buy clothing, try to do it at home beforehand. You can shop around, compare prices, get better selection. Trying on boots and helmets especially is important if buying.
Okay, getting closer. Step 5, packing. What's essential?
Pack smart. Layers are key. Thermal base layers. Merino wool is great. Avoid cotton. Insulating mid-layer, like fleece. Waterproof, windproof jacket and pants. Ski socks, 2 or 3 pairs. Waterproof gloves or mittens. Neck gaiter or balaclava. Warm hat.
Sounds warm.
You need it. Plus casual warm clothes for evenings. Own helmet and goggles if you have them. Sunglasses. Good snow boots or waterproof shoes with grip for walking around.
Accessories.
High SPF sunscreen. Lip balm sun is strong off the snow. Small backpack. Water bottle. Maybe hand warmers. Any personal meds. Documents, passport, visa, licenses, booking confirmations.
Got it. Now, once you're there, how do you plan the actual skiing?
Step 6. Plan your activities. First day for beginners. Get rentals sorted, meet your instructor, practice on the bunny hill. Don't push too hard.
Okay.
Subsequent days, explore more as you improve. Progress to slightly harder runs. Maybe schedule a rest day or try something else like snow tubing. Check the resort schedule for things like night skiing, fireworks, events.
Good idea. What about safety prep?
Step 7. Safety and health. Get reasonably fit beforehand, legs and core especially. Prepare for cold with layering. No signs of altitude sickness if you're going high. Stay hydrated.
And basic mountain rules.
Learn basic etiquette. Step 8. Downhill skier has right of way. Don't stop where you obstruct a trail or can't be seen from above. Obey signs.
And finally,
Step 9. Contingency plans. What if the weather's bad and lift's close? What if you don't actually love skiing? Know what else the resort offers. Approach it like any trip, research, book, pack. Ask staff for help. It'll be an adventure.
that's a fantastic practical guide. Okay, so you've planned, you've arrived. What's a typical day actually like at a ski resort? Walk us through it.
Okay, imagine a typical day. Morning starts early, maybe 7:00 or 8:00 a.m. Wake up to that crisp winter air. Grab a hearty breakfast. You'll see people already in their ski gear.
Fueling up.
Definitely. Then it's layering up your ski clothes. Sunscreen is essential, even on cloudy days. Grab your equipment, skis, boots, poles, helmet, goggles. Head to the lifts or the rental shop or your ski school meeting point, maybe around 9:00 a.m. for lessons.
When do the slopes actually open?
Lifts usually start spinning between 8:30 and 9:00 a.m. Keen skiers aim for that first chair to get on fresh groomed snow, that corduroy.
Ah, right.
Beginners will be on the bunny hill, maybe using a conveyor belt lift or rope tow. Others head up the chairlifts or gondola to higher terrain. That early morning air is cold but invigorating. Views can be amazing.
Okay, so you're skiing or learning. What happens midday?
The morning is spent sliding, practicing, exploring. Beginners are learning the snowplow turn, maybe taking their first chairlift ride, tackling easy green runs. Expect a few tumbles.
Part of the process.
Absolutely. Intermediates are exploring more trails. Lunch is usually around 12:00 or 12:00 or 12:40 raw. You ski down to a base area restaurant or maybe a mid-mountain lodge.
What are those like?
Can range from big self-service cafeterias with fireplaces to lodges with picnic tables outside. You click out of your skis or board, head inside. It's warm, bustling, smells of food, burgers, pasta, maybe local specialties. Lines can be long at peak times.
Time to rest the legs.
Exactly. Rest, refuel, maybe check the trail map, decide where to ski in the afternoon. Muscles might be aching if you're new to it.
In the afternoon session.
Back out for more runs, maybe 1:30 p.m. onwards. The snow might soften up if it's sunny or stay firm if it's cold. Slopes can be busy just after lunch. Maybe explore a new area, head higher for better views.
Take some photos.
Definitely. Appreciate the scenery. Beginners might be progressing to longer green runs from higher lifts. Big sense of achievement there. The sun starts getting lower and lifts generally close between 3:00 and 4:30 p.m. Time for that last run of the day. Ski Patrol does final sweeps.
And then a presky.
Then it's a time. After ski.
Yeah.
Time to unwind, socialize. The bars and cafes at the base area or in the village come alive. Music playing, people grabbing drinks, often still in their ski gear.
What's the vibe like?
can be really lively, especially in Europe, sometimes literally dancing on tables in ski boots.
Yeah.
More relaxed maybe in Australia or North America, pubs, hotel lounges. Japan traditionally had onsens, but now more bars and resorts like Niseko.
So grab a drink, chat about the day,
Yeah, share stories. Maybe there's live music, relax those tired muscles, maybe a hot tub or sauna if your accommodation has one. Definitely time to get out of those ski boots.
the relief. What about the evening?
Shower, change, head out for dinner around 7:00 or 8:00 p.m. Resort villages usually have a range of places, from casual pizza joints to fancier restaurants, cozy atmosphere, talk about the day's adventures.
Any evening entertainment.
Sometimes, maybe a local band, trivia night. Some resorts offer night skiing on certain evenings, Threadbow does. Some Austrian and Asian resorts, too. Worth trying if you still have energy.
Or just collapse.
Most beginners are ready to relax by the fire or just crash. Head back to your lodge. Outside, the grooming machines are probably out preparing the slopes for tomorrow. It gets quiet, maybe it starts snowing.
Right.
Perfect end to the day.
Sounds like a good rhythm. Ski, eat, relax, repeat.
Pretty much. You gain confidence each day, maybe try other activities too. But yeah, it's a pleasant routine aligned with the daylight hours. Serious skiers have that saying, no friends on a powder day. But for most people, especially beginners, it's the whole package, the camaraderie that makes it special. Many get hooked.
I can see why. Okay, let's zero in on Australia now. We mentioned Threadbow, Perisher, Charlotte Pass, and NSW. How do they stack up against each other?
Right, they're the main players in NSW, all in Kosciuszko National Park, relatively close together but offering different feels. Threadbow, its big claims are the longest runs in Australia and a really vibrant alpine village atmosphere.
Longest runs.
Yeah, it has the biggest vertical drop in Australia, around 672 meters. Home to the Super Trail, which is nearly 6 kilometers long. It's got 14 lifts, over 50 trails. And the village is right at the base, quite compact, walkable, Europeanish feel. Lots of restaurants, bars, shops.
It's good for long skiing and village life.
Definitely. Lively nightlife, good amenities like a leisure center. Accessible by road, though you need chains in winter usually. And it operates year-round with biking and hiking. Quite a cosmopolitan feel.
Okay, what about Perisher? You said it's the biggest?
Perisher is the largest resort in the Southern Hemisphere by area, about 1,245 hectares. It's actually 4 interconnected areas: Perisher Valley, Smigan Holes, Blue Cow, and Guthega.
All in one ticket?
Yep, all linked by lifts and runs. It has way more lifts, 45 in total, but the vertical drop is smaller than Threadbow's, around 334 meters.
What's the terrain like?
Huge variety. Lots for intermediates, about 60% of the terrain. Good beginner areas, too.
Yeah.
Advanced terrain exists, but maybe not as consistently steep as Threadbow's best bits. Crucially, Perisher doesn't have one central village like Threadbow.
Okay. Where do people stay?
There are lodges scattered in Perisher Valley and Smiggins, but many people stay down in Jindabyne, which is a 30-minute drive or a quick trip on the ski tube train from Bullock's Flat. There are several base hubs with services at Perisher, but the main nightlife is in Jindabyne.
And Perisher is owned by Vail Resorts now.
That's right, so it's part of their Epic Pass system, ideal for sheer variety runs, very family-friendly, but maybe lacks that central village charm, can get crowded.
Okay, Threadbow for village and long runs. Perisher for size and variety. What's Charlotte Pass's niche?
Charlotte Pass is all about being small, secluded, intimate. It's Australia's highest village, sits at 1,755 meters, so often gets good natural snow.
Ayas Village, okay.
But the ski area is tiny compared to the others, about 50 hectares. Just 5 lifts. Short runs, only about 209-meter vertical. Good for beginners, intermediates. Experienced skiers might use it as a base for backcountry touring.
And you can't drive there in winter.
Correct. It's snowbound. Access is via over-snow vehicle, usually from Perisher Ski Tube Terminal. That means very low crowds, feels quite exclusive.
Where do you stay?
There's one main historic hotel, the Kosciuszko Chalet, which has rooms, dining, etc., and a few club lodges. Very family-oriented, peaceful, definitely not a party place.
So limited terrain, but unique experience.
Exactly. It's often sold as an all-inclusive package transport from Perisher, lodging, meals, lift tickets. It's actually Australia's oldest ski resort.
So summing up the choice between them.
Perisher if you want the most skiing options and don't mind staying off-mountain or the spread-out feel. Threadbow if you value longer runs, a proper village vibe, and nightlife. Charlotte Pass for a quiet, crowd-free, unique, snowbound experience, best suited for families or beginners intermediates.
How do they compare on things like ski school or snow reliability?
All have ski schools and rentals. Threadbow and Perisher have much larger operations, more non-ski activities. Charlotte Pass is smaller, more personalized ski school. Snow. Charlotte Pass often holds snow best due to altitude. Perisher has massive snowmaking. Threadbow's lower half can suffer in marginal conditions. But skiing amongst the Aussie snow gums is special at all three.
Really useful comparison. Now, broadening out again.
Yeah.
How do these Aussie resorts stack up against the big international players in Europe, Japan, North America, even NZ?
Yeah, that's where you see some big differences. Let's
Right.
start with snow and season length. Australia. Short season, mid-June to early Oct usually. Snowfall is variable, maybe 1-3 meters average a year. More is a bumper season. Heavy reliance on snowmaking.
How does that compare?
Europe, the Alps, longer season, dapper often, much higher snowfall, especially Western Alps, maybe 4-7 meters or more. Higher elevations, glaciers help too.
Japan.
Yeah.
Famous for powder.
Right. Insane amounts of snow. Kiseko Hakuba can get 8-15 meters of dry powder, season to early April. What Australia calls a bumper year, Japan might call a terrible season. Although many Japanese resorts are lower altitude, they're higher latitude.
Wow, 15 meters. What about North America?
Varies by region. Rockies might get 7 meters, Whistler maybe 11 meters, some places even more. Season November, sometimes May or June, lots of managed powder skiing.
In New Zealand, closer comparison to Australia.
Season June-September. Snowfall is variable, but often more reliable than Australia, maybe a few meters a year. Extensive snowmaking, too. Generally colder weather than Aussie resorts. So yeah, Japan for powder quantity, European A for longer seasons and often more snow. NZ may be slightly better than Auschaf on average. Australia really needs its snowmaking.
Okay, big difference in snow. What about the size and type of terrain?
Australian resorts are small on a global scale. Perisher, the biggest, at 1,245 hectares, is maybe medium-sized compared to major alpine or American resorts.
How big are those?
Some alpine areas have hundreds of kilometers of linked trails. Three Valleys in France claims 600 kilometers. Vail in the U.S. is over 2,100 hectares, Whistler over 3,300. Niseko in Japan is around 850 hectares, similar size range to bigger Aussie resorts, but with way more snow.
And vertical drop. You mentioned Threadbow's 672 meters was Australia's best.
Yeah. Many European resorts have over 1,000 meters vertical. Some, like Chamonix, have way over 2,000 meters. U.S. resorts like Jackson Hole have over 1,200 meters, Whistler over 1,600 meters.
So much longer runs overseas.
Much longer continuous runs possible, yeah. A 5-kilometer run in Australia is a big deal. In the Alps, 15-20 kilometers runs exist. Advanced skiers find more challenge overseas, steeper chutes, big open bowls, vast off-piste areas. Australia doesn't really have that above tree line alpine bowl skiing.
Okay, so smaller scale, less vertical, less extreme terrain in Australia generally. How does the infrastructure compare? Lifts, facilities.
Australia has some modern lifts like Threadbow's gondola, but the overall scale is smaller. Perisher's 45 lifts include lots of surface tows, T-bars, J-bars.
Right.
International resorts often have extensive networks of high-speed chairs, big gondolas, cable cars. Europe is famous for its huge cable cars carrying 100-plus people. Japan often has covered chairlifts for weather protection. Amenities, too, more luxury options, bigger ski schools overseas usually. Japan has the onsen culture. Australia's amenities are good, but maybe fewer choices, concentrated in villages or nearby towns.
What about crowds and atmosphere? Apachik.
Australia can get very crowded on peak weekends. Lift lines can be long. Big international resorts can also have lines, but the larger terrain can sometimes help spread people out. Après-ski, we touched on that. Europe is legendary for lively slopeside parties. Japan is traditionally quieter on Sen, though getting livelier in places like Niseko. North America has a mix. Australia is more subdued. Threadbow probably the liveliest.
And the cultural experience.
Big difference. Europe has history, charming villages, amazing food, different languages. Japan offers a totally unique culture, incredible service, the food, maybe a language barrier. Ausensee feels more familiar culturally for English speakers.
Okay, let's talk cost and value. How does Australia compare financially?
This is a big one. Australia is often perceived as expensive for what you get. Lift tickets aren't cheap, similar to top U.S. resorts, but for smaller mountains, shorter season. Lodging and food can be pricey too.
So Aussies might find overseas trips better value.
Many do. A week in Japan can sometimes cost similar to a week in Perisher, but with arguably better snow and a huge cultural experience bonus. Europe has varied price points. Eastern Europe can be cheap, Switzerland expensive. But European lift passes are often cheaper per day than OS/US for way more terrain. US-Canada are mid to high cost generally. Japan offers good value, reasonable lift lodging, cheap, delicious food. NZ is similar cost to a bus, maybe slightly less.
And for someone from India, travel cost is a factor.
Absolutely. Australia or Japan are geographically closer than Europe or North America, which impacts flight costs significantly.
How easy is it to get to the resorts in these different places?
Australia is pretty remote. Fly to Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne, then a long drive or bus. No direct train except the ski tube link. Europe often has amazing public transport integration trains right to resort towns. Japan's bullet trains are incredible for access. North America relies more on car rentals or airport shuttles. NZ is mostly driving from gateway towns. Europe, Japan win for convenience if you don't want to drive.
So summing up the comparison,
Yeah.
Australia versus the world.
Australia, good for a convenient getaway if you're local, great place to learn, unique scenery with the snow gums. But smaller scale, shorter season, variable snow can be expensive for what it is. Europe, huge scale, long runs, charming villages, great food, culture, varied price points, excellent transport. Japan, unbeatable powder snow, unique culture, great value, friendly service, maybe a language barrier. North America, vast terrain, good infrastructure, high service levels, familiar culture for many can be pricey. New Zealand, stunning scenery, more reliable snow than Alatus generally, good adventure activities, similar cost to Alavis.
That's a really clear overview of the trade-offs.
Mhm.
Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, any final essential tips for newcomers hitting the slopes for the first time?
Yeah, a few key things to remember. First, take it easy and prioritize safety. Lessons are your friend. Progress slowly. Stick to easy slopes initially. Learn the slope safety code. Yield to people downhill. Don't stop where you can't be seen. Obey signs and ski patrol. Wear a helmet.
Good advice. What else?
Be aware of altitude. If you're going high, hydrate. Take it easy first day. Protect yourself from the elements, cold and sun. Use sunscreen. Wear goggles and glasses. Snow blindness is real.
Okay.
Look after your gear, especially rentals. Be careful walking in ski boots. They're slippery. Maybe lock your skis outside the cafe.
Good tip.
Know your limits with the press ski drinks at altitude. Be polite. Respect local customs like onsen etiquette in Japan. Respect the mountain environment. Don't litter.
And insurance. One last time.
Absolutely crucial. Get travel insurance covering ski accidents and rescue before you go. Check the details. Carry the info.
What about trying other things?
Definitely. Try snow tubing, snowshoeing, ice skating, maybe just a scenic gondola ride. Good for a break or if the weather's bad.
And mindset.
Remember, it takes practice. Consider annual trips if you enjoy it. Get reasonably fit beforehand. Take lessons periodically. But most importantly, just soak it all in. Enjoy the mountain air, the scenery, the feeling of sliding on snow, the cozy evenings. Appreciate the little things. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Prepare, be open-minded, and it'll likely be an amazing experience. Enjoy the slopes.
Well, that was incredibly comprehensive. A true deep dive into the world of ski resorts. We've covered so much, from the absolute basics to their history, how they run as businesses, the costs, planning a trip, and even comparing Australia to the rest of the world.
Yeah, the aim was really to give anyone new to this, maybe especially our listeners from places like India where it's less common, a solid, engaging introduction. Hopefully we've managed to unpack it all.
I certainly feel like I have a much clearer picture now. And hopefully for you listening, this has demystified ski resorts and maybe even sparked some ideas about what kind of resort experience might appeal most to you. Perhaps the deep powder of Japan or the vastness of the Alps.
Which brings us to a final thought to leave you with. We've seen how these specialized destinations, ski resorts, have these rich histories and complex economies. It makes you wonder, what other seemingly niche holiday spots around the globe might hold equally fascinating stories and systems just wait for us to discover them? What other unique travel worlds are out there?